Southern Australia, 120 million years ago. Not only is this part of the continent still within the Antarctic Circle, it is also still connected to Antarctica itself, though the two landmasses are beginning to separate, and this has created immense formations collectively referred to as the Great Rift Valleys. In these valleys you can find many different dinosaurs. Some cross through every year, and others spend most of their lives here. But within the rivers, there is a truly ancient animal, one that has barely changed since its ancestors dominated the world's freshwater ecosystems in a time before the dinosaurs. Koolasuchus is a massive temnospondyl amphibian. He dwarfs any modern amphibian, at a length of 5 meters and weighing 500 kilograms. These long and heavy creatures are predators, and their wide jaws have an incredible gape, allowing them to swallow prey without chewing. They spend the majority of their time at the bottom of fast-flowing rivers, waiting for prey to come to them. They sit completely motionless, their bodies blending in with the rocks around them. So well in fact that many of the river's other inhabitants never realize they are there. The only ones that do usually learn that fact far too late. Aside from having powerful jaws lined with sharp teeth, Koolosuchus can also suction feed, sucking water into their mouths in a fraction of a second, and any prey that was in that water. So fast in fact that prey don't even realize they have been pulled in by one of these giant amphibians. They are evolved to cope with these freezing waters, and have not just survived through the age of dinosaurs, but thrived. They have also grown enormous. Of course, they can't stay fixed in one spot forever, and occasionally they must swim using their powerful tails to move up and down the rivers and streams. On rare occurrences, however, they have to move over land. This is less favorable for most amphibians, as their skin will eventually dry out without water. But for the Koolosuchus, their problem is simply moving at all. Their limbs are tiny for their body size, and their powerful jaws and skull become an inhibiting weight. Not only that, but their tail that was so powerful in the water is practically useless out of it. So when a Koolosuchus has to go from one body of water to the other, it's not a decision made lightly. One male is about to begin such a journey, only a 20-meter crawl from a creek to a more open river. A journey that he has to make as a recent storm has brought down trees, cutting the creek off enough that the Koolosuchus can't swim through the fallen debris. Hauling himself out of the water, covered in mud and leaf litter, the predator slowly but steadily pushes himself onto dry land, a rare and eerie sight. One step at a time, he drags his heavy body across the dirt, this being the first time his whole body has been out of water since he can remember. Out here he is vulnerable, but despite his desperate need to get to the river, he can only manage a small waddle. Partway through his struggle, he is spotted by a flock of dinosaurs, Koolosuchus. These small ornithopods under 2 meters long are fast, lightweight herbivores that pose no threat to the giant amphibian. Upon spotting him awkwardly move along the ground, they are actually rather curious. The group of 10 all move towards the back of the Koolosuchus, chirping to each other and bobbing their heads forward and back, or side to side. Most have never seen a Koolosuchus before, and the group are trying to determine what he is, and if he is a threat. The majority of the group stay at his rear, a few paces back, but a few braver individuals move along his side, with plenty of distance between them. The Koolosuchus knows they are there, but he can't do anything about them. In the water he is deadly, but on land he can barely crawl, let alone catch these agile dinosaurs. Bit by bit he gets closer to his destination. The Koolosuchus get more bolder, edging closer and closer, seeing if anything they do will get a reaction. The Koolosuchus is barely irritated by their presence, as there are many other much larger dinosaurs in this forest he could have run into. One of the Koolosuchus, however, gets bored, and abruptly moves forward and bites the end of his tail. The amphibian may not have strong legs, but the muscles on his body are powerful. The Koolasuchus twists his left side, pulling his large head towards some of the dinosaurs. As he does, he opens his jaws, revealing his many pointed teeth. His lunge surprises the herbivores, that all leap back in shock. None of them are caught in the predator's maw, but they all turn and flee back the way they came, running 20 meters before they stop and look back at their attacker. The Koolasuchus closes his jaws, and slowly goes back to pulling himself along the ground, having wasted a slight amount of time. As he nears the water's edge, the Quantosaurus approach him from behind, but this time at a greater distance, not wanting to mess with this strange creature. Finally, the male's head reaches the river's edge, but he doesn't stop crawling till his body and eventually his tail are in the shallow water. Soon after that, he pushes off and splashes his tail swimming along the river's surface for a brief moment before diving below, his dark form disappearing below the surface, as he once again becomes the most dangerous predator beneath the water. Settling in at the bottom of the river, he rested and waited. Prey would eventually come to him, and unlike on land, they wouldn't see him coming. Hello fellow travelers and welcome back. Today we will be breaking down an amphibian that was in a way out of time. Koolasuchus. Koolasuchus's first remains were discovered in the Australian state of Victoria in 1980. This holotype had the name GOK for 20 years, which was short for God Only Knows. It would be named Koolasuchus clelandii in 1997. The genus name is after paleontologist Leslie Kool, but is also a sort of pun on how the environment it lived in is thought to have been quite cold, aka cool. The species name is a reference to Michael Cleland, the highly skilled fossil collector who found it. The holotype consists of fragments of the lower jaw and several postcranial bones, including ribs, vertebra, a fibula, and parts of the pectoral girdle. Additional remains would be found in later years, including a near-complete jaw and a skull roof. Koolasuchus belonged to the Temnospondyle order in the Brachiopoid family, living between 125 and 120 million years ago in the Aptian stage of the early Cretaceous. It grew to 5 meters long, with a near meter-long skull, and weighed up to 500 kilograms. Often it's described as looking like a mix between a newt and a crocodile, and being so large it's easy to see why. The head of Koolasuchus was round, flat and bowl-like in shape. The jaws were lined with curved, ridged, fang-like teeth that were well suited to piercing and holding on to prey. In addition to this, Koolasuchus also had 2 tusk-like teeth growing from the top jaw that got up to 5 centimeters in length. Its body was also flat and wide, supported by 4 rather small legs. These would have been used in the rare occurrences that Koolasuchus had to move onto land, and though it could do so, it would have been sluggish and awkward, as this was an animal meant to spend the majority of its life submerged in water. The tail was long, tall, and powerful, used to push the animal's bulk through the water. Its skin was likely thicker and tougher than modern amphibians, however it still needed to keep its skin wet, or it would dry out and die. Now let's discuss where Koolasuchus lived. At the time, Australia and Antarctica were still connected, and were in fact within the Antarctic Circle. However, at this time they were starting to split apart. This created great rift valleys, with vast floodplains and fast-flowing high-energy rivers. These were usually lush with vegetation but very cold, with temperatures in summer only getting a few degrees above zero, while the winters it could drop to a few degrees below zero. It was in these cold yet vast rivers that Koolasuchus thrived, laying at the bottom or perched on underwater rocks, waiting for fish or other aquatic prey to get close so they could ambush them. The land was home to many dinosaurs, though much of these remains are fragmentary. They belong to the Wangthaji Formation, and include multiple different ornithopods, small ankylosaurs, and even megaraptors. So would the mighty Koolasuchus have fed on some of these dinosaurs, as it was depicted doing in its first series debut, that of course being the Walking with Dinosaurs series? There is no doubt that at some point a few Koolasuchus definitely ate some form of dinosaur, but did it launch itself from the water like a crocodile as it was depicted? That likely didn't happen very often, as Koolasuchus evolved as a bottom-dwelling ambush predator that would likely spend hours completely still waiting for prey to pass close enough so that it could launch forward and/or up to snare prey in its jaws. Its skull also isn't built like a crocodile's, which are much more triangular and thin. This is not to say that Koolasuchus couldn't have attempted to attack small animals drinking from the shore. However, I see it far more likely that Koolasuchus could have ambushed those wading in shallow water, or swam up beneath dinosaurs that were trying to swim across the river, taking advantage of an animal when it was vulnerable, and the amphibian was in its element. One of the most interesting things about Koolasuchus is its age. It is by far the youngest known temnospondyl. Now, this does come with a caveat that it is currently debated if most modern amphibians, including frogs and salamanders, are descendants of the temnospondyls, basically meaning they never went extinct. But for now, we'll go with the theory that this family is extinct. Temnospondyls as a family appeared in the Carboniferous and continued through the Permian and the Triassic. However, after the Triassic, they mostly disappear. In fact, the youngest fossils of temnospondyls before Koolasuchus are 60 million years older than it. But in Antarctica and Australia, they held on, as the rest of the world became ruled by dinosaurs and crocodilians. One of the main theories is that the area was too cold for crocodilians to live in, and so Koolasuchus and its ancestors lived mostly unchanged and uncontested. Completely unaware that they were the last of a once widespread and very successful family. Of course, Australia would move further north, and there is fossil evidence that crocodilians did live in the area later in time. Whether competition with these reptiles, or the slow change of environments, or the end of Koolasuchus, we will probably never know. To some, Koolasuchus is a fascinating creature that held out against the odds, the last remnant of a line that died out millions of years ago. And yet in the cold, fast-flowing rivers of southern Australia, you could find their descendants still in its prime. Some also see it as a tragic creature, as it may have been truly the last of its kind. That is, of course, being if modern amphibians aren't descended from them. But as far as we know, of the truly massive amphibians, it was indeed the last. A reminder that some species will hold on in areas that competition can't reach, and survive against all odds. But what do you think of Koolasuchus? And for my question of the week, do you still see Koolasuchus as a dinosaur hunter, or more like its modern counterparts, living more slow and steady? What lesser-known extinct creature would you like me to do a breakdown on next? I hope you enjoyed this look at a well-known Australian fossil animal, and since I am Australian myself, it's always enjoyable to cover them. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching.